Hey there! This video is a little later than usual because I was away for the long weekend. It's Labor Day in Australia. Now, I absolutely couldn't wait to read the chapter, so I'm typing my first reaction as I read it, and I'll give it a bit more thought as well. Last chapter, in my first reaction, I missed a ton of stuff, namely all the strange inconsistencies between the different panels. A lot of people seem to be taking that to mean that Nami is hallucinating a lot, if not all of what is happening. My 2 cents is this: I think there probably is an imposter/hallucination or two, however I don't think all of it is fake. My main reason for thinking so are these 2 panels of the giants reacting to the fires. I think this is someone or something cooking up the rabbit god and the lion. However, something that I'm not so sure of is that these people reacting to the fire are actually giants. Or potentially they are giants that have just been shrunk, or they're regular, or at least more regular sized people that have taken on the fashion of Warland. Either way, let's see if we find out in One Piece chapter 1128, RPG. Now isn't that an interesting title? No Yamato this week, but we get a lovely double-page color spread, Robin looking like she straight up belongs in a Magic School style series with her getup. Interesting that Sanji's first line is, "Too many dudes around for this to be a dream." Makes me think if he's also questioning the reality around him, though he does pick up Nami and literally just airwalks out of there, seemingly ditching Luffy and the others. Oh, I should probably keep track of what people are wearing and wielding, so Sanji with a sword, Nami with a sword in that panel. As Sanji's flying away, we do see another shot of the so-called Yggdrasil, and even taking perspective into account, there is no way that this is the real deal, it's far too small. We see Usopp, Luffy and Zoro. Luffy is holding an axe again, and his horns are black. Luffy's also questioning Usopp, saying, "You could have taken that cat lion thing, right?" And you know what? Fair point. Usopp's at this level now where unless he had lost access to his pop greens or something, he probably could have taken it down. Very suspicious. Usopp deflects, and then, "Here's where I'm at. Our threads resemble what the warriors of Elbath are always wearing, but there's no way they'd have clothes that fit us. We're talking about an island of giants after all," which, fair point. Nami examines a nearby tree, confirms that it's not real, though wasn't she just in the sky with Sanji? It looked like they were heading off into the distance, but now they're back on the ground with Luffy and co. Zoro is still fixated on finding the sea, but while some people thought that that was odd for Zoro, I don't think that's odd at all. We know Zoro can't find things, but he's never thought he's got a bad sense of direction, and his first reflex is to protect the crew. People also said that Luffy isn't wearing his straw hat, but I don't think that's right either. I reckon it's underneath his helmet. It's got these gaps to the side, and I think they're wide enough for the straw hat to fit, though I could be wrong. Sanji can't sense Robin nearby, though he's sniffing to confirm that. Was that always how he recognized it? Should also say Sanji and Nami still have swords and Luffy still has an axe. The strange changing appears to have stopped, at least for the moment, if it ever were truly intentional. And now the Straw Hats head to town. Nami also comments that she cannot feel any wind, which is interesting. I think especially with a chapter title like RPG, that this area may be a closed-off space, probably due to a devil fruit. The group comes across some guy riding a grasshopper like it's a motorcycle, and design-wise he's got a big sun-like tattoo on him. Funnily enough, Sanji and Nami both recoil, saying keep that bug away, but Sanji was happy to cook up some bees the previous chapter. It's like, were the issues last chapter mistakes and Oda's going out of his way to rectify them? Or has the turbulence of the scenario caused by Nami's stress now settled because she's no longer under threat? So people are acting more like themselves. The grasshopper rider, which I should note, the grasshopper is huge, though the person riding it is probably about Whitebeard size. He says that he can't stay and chat, but he reminds the crew that this vast land belongs to the sun god. Luffy responds with, "God?" ? Because I still don't think anyone has told him, "Yo, you've got a sun god fruit, my guy." Grasshopper guy drops some more lore, saying he maintains Big Stein Castle, and the castle is the domain of the great Izcat, which is the lion cat thing that they killed and probably ate. He also mentions the needle god, which I don't think we saw after it was electrocuted, assuming it was the hedgehog. So 3 gods defeated and 2 probably consumed. Usopp very quickly covers Luffy's mouth before he blurts out that they beat the cat. Zoro, Sanji and Nami all shut their mouths and start whistling innocently, which, not sure I'd expect Zoro to do that, but it does look really funny. I'm having a thought before I finish the page. If I follow my "there are giants here but they're shrunk down" logic, I wonder if that's why they're deifying all these large creatures. If they were their regular size, then the lion, cat, rabbit, bees, etc. wouldn't be anything special, but because the giants are shrunk and probably don't realize that they are shrunk, they're seeing these now apparently giant-sized creatures and thinking, "Ah, it's so huge, it must be a god." Either way, the grasshopper rider warns them not to follow the road, that there are rabid guardians that protect the sun god's temple, and that no one that goes there returns to tell the tale. And Nami knows that that is the worst thing to say, and before I turn the page I can tell that's exactly the sort of thing that's up Luffy's alley. And yup, Luffy runs off as Sanji, Usopp and Nami tell him to wait. Nami gives the rider a wink to distract him, and the group run off after Luffy, though Zoro seems keen and Sanji calls him an enabler, which is true. "This place reeks of adventure," shouts Luffy as he leaves the gang behind. He sees another figure running towards him, he says he'll dodge, and then he smacks into some sort of mirror face first. The mirror shatters and the residents of the town all freak out. Everything's going to hell. The shattered mirror reveals that the group are in some sort of cage/diorama, essentially, behind a one-way mirror. The group confirms that they aren't on the giant ship, it's not like any of the rooms that were there, and Sanji thinks that they've been in some sort of pet cage. Then we hear a voice. "Guys, are you there? Was that noise you? Help me." It's our boy, Chopper, crying his little eyes out. He's had a steel collar put on him, which they've taken off, and Nami gives him a hug, though Nami says, "You owe me for this hug," which, I don't know, Nami and Robin have never had any sort of issue giving Chopper a cuddle. I'm pretty sure they've bathed with him too? Usopp calls her out on it too, so that's a thing. I see that Zoro has removed the collar and crushed it with his hand. No one's going to traumatize Zoro's little Chopper bro. Usopp and Zoro are examining the room, confirming that there are human-sized clothes here and that they must have been dressed up like dolls, and Sanji confirms that there was the scent of plastic burning when they were cooking the rabbit. They look through the mirror and Sanji says that he volunteers to clean the ladies' room on the ship because... Sanji. It's also good to confirm that yes, whatever the Yggdrasil is in the block area, it isn't the real thing. Zoro is pretty pissed off being treated this way, being observed in a block world. Usopp says, "Yup, weird, but they must also be on the giant island now because this is clearly a giant's room." But Nami stops them. She confirms that a giant is likely behind this, but they may not necessarily be on a giant island yet, which is interesting. Luffy gets rightfully distracted by an enormous snake, as well as rats and a crow. I also just realized that the possibility of giants being shrunk down is wrong. They're likely just other humans captured by whoever built the block world, though the logic of the cat and rabbit being treated like gods still stands. Either way, the gang assumes that these creatures are the temple guardians that people were talking about. Though also, the crow is wearing a skull, the rats are wearing jackets, I think, and the snake is wearing a helmet, so everybody is getting into giant fashion here. Then we see some mysterious figure wearing a deer skull and a very interesting looking staff, reminiscent of a sun, walking down a hallway and towards the door. They hear the commotion going on inside, someone has busted the fireplace, causing fire to spread and smoke appears from beneath the doorframe, and the masked person is concerned. They open the door to absolute chaos. Luffy has entered Gear 5th, fire is everywhere. Luffy's Gear 5th looks a little different than usual. He's in his Gear 5th laughing pose, but it looks like his cloak and helmet have been included in the transformation, which is notably different from his egghead outfit. The other thing to note is that the deer skull person calls the room their sacred temple, which is an interesting choice of words. It looks like a pretty normal looking room, giant diorama excluded. Usopp says they should run for it now that the sun god is back, but Luffy chooses to instead gum, booming dawn pistol the snake. I think the giant is calling the animal's name, so I believe they call the crow Mugen, and the snake, Heilemangander? Look, it's very Norse mythology. It kind of looks like Jormungandr, so I'm assuming it's Heilemangander. I'll put the text on screen. I can't read this. I'll wait for other people to review and pronounce it properly for me. Either way, the cat makes another appearance as someone hits it, so I guess it wasn't eaten after all, and Chopper translates saying, "It says, you'll pay for this." Nami has picked up a map of the block country and they fled back inside, and the so-called sun god shouts after them, "How dare you defile my beloved country," and enters after them. The people of the town see their sun god and say that they are incensed. The Straw Hats plan to burst through the opposite side of the block world and through the wall behind it. The chapter ends with the sun god saying, "I won't let you escape, no break next week." So, I guess, was everything in the last chapter just mistakes? Like, actually, really? There was no greater meaning behind the switching weapons, Luffy calling out the wrong attacks, the fades to black, the name calling for Nami to wake up. Surely not, right? I don't want to make the mistake of saying that this is a straightforward chapter since I made that mistake last chapter, but really this mini reveal, while wondrous and exciting, I don't know. Is the so-called sun god going to use some sort of devil fruit ability that may explain things? We still don't have an explanation of how the Straw Hats arrived in this block world. My guess is that this giant is going to be Loki. While he is over 50, that's young by giant years, and if he is a prince of Elbaf, I can see it being the case that Loki is ruling over his false kingdom, asserting his authority, unable to handle the actual requirements of leadership, and instead playing make-believe as a god in a world of his own making. Kidnapping people that he views as small and powerless to go against him, unlike actual giants who are generally quite strong. Though I am saying he for Loki, and this character seems to be wearing heels, which is a pretty Oda way of saying this be a female, but, is Loki a woman? I was thinking about this a little, but Lola, Charlotte Lola, was madly trying to find a husband. She had proposed, according to the wiki, over 4,000 times, but she rejected a proposal from Loki. We see a visual of a giant hulking person, but silhouettes have been wrong before. Could Lola have rejected the proposal because Loki was actually a woman, so she wasn't interested? It's definitely a shot in the dark, but every island kingdom needs a princess, so what if Loki is the princess of Elbaf? Following this train of thought, it was weird for Loki to take an interest in Lola anyway, purely from a size standpoint, but what if Loki has an obsession with humans, some sort of person that's obsessed with humans, like he's an otaku for humans? I'm also wondering, after being rejected by Lola, did Loki shut him or herself away and start obsessing with this kingdom-building hobby? Is Loki the equivalent of a figurine otaku? They call this room their sacred temple, and that nomenclature reminds me of otaku in other works of fiction when they've set up shrines to their favorite character or whatnot. Or alternatively, is this the equivalent to a literal giant Chinibyo, someone that doesn't grow up properly and lives as though they are in a fantasy, like some sort of main character syndrome? That's my long shot idea that's starting to form after this chapter. There's a lot of questions that need answering right now, but definitely the first and foremost questions on my mind are, where is the Sunny, and how did the Sunny get taken from its connection to the giant ship and transported wherever they are now? Glad we've got confirmation that Chopper is here and alright though, and it was certainly very cute that Zoro crushed his collar with his hands. But yeah, will the strange discrepancies be explained, or were they legitimately mistakes? It's so bizarre, it's kind of doing my head in. I think the hint is in the title, RPG, role-playing game. Something still doesn't add up. Alrighty, that's all from me. See you next time. Toodles!